Hey everybody, who's your Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 15 of season 3 of Arrow called Nanda Parbat. And I gotta say, this is another really strong episode of the series. I mean, everybody has their little moments to shine, and there's just an amazing amount of stuff going on. It really feels like almost like they crammed two episodes into one. So let's just get down into it because we got a lot to talk about. So let's start small and kind of work our way up. So we might as well talk about one of the things that had Tumblr absolutely soiling itself last night. Oh, I love when that happens. So anyway, and of course I'm referring to the whole thing with Ray and Felicity. And it was, to me, absolutely hilarious to read some of these people's posts. It's like, oh, this is so painful for Felicity shippers, but we're going to endure this. It's like, oh my. Okay, folks. Now, once again, I got to remind everybody, I don't really do shipping. I mean, yes, sometimes I have the idea that like it would be cool if these characters were a couple, but like the shipping as an actual action is not really my kind of thing. I've never been into it, and I've never really understood it very well. It just sort of seems, well, to be blunt, silly to me because this isn't like a game of Risk where you do something and there's a reaction and ultimately you either win or lose. That is ultimately is decided by whoever's writing the story. So people in fandom getting into some kind of a pissing contest over this sort of thing is just beyond ridiculous to me. But yeah, I do have to say though that when that happened, when Felicity and Ray, went off to bed together, I was like, you know what, good for her. Not because I'm huge on Ray and Felicity as a couple. Again, I'm really sort of mostly gonna trust the writers to tell a good story. But that said, Oliver has made himself really just as Felicity said, he's not someone that she really wants to be with right now. Oliver's had sometimes good reasons for the way he's acted, and sometimes it's just him being a stupid ass. But, good on Felicity for not sitting around and pining for this guy. Ray has his flaws, and it looks honestly like Ray might be heading down the same path Oliver is. But he's not there. He's somebody who's been open and available and honest to her in ways that Oliver hasn't been. So I don't blame this girl for one little bit for going for the guy who's a good catch and, as we see in this episode, obviously seems to have similar feelings towards her. Life's short. You gotta seize those opportunities when you can. And of course, it's cool to see Ray finally get the Atom suit working. Now it feels a little odd for the Atom suit to be suspiciously like the Iron Man suit, but again, I'm sure they'll do the shrinking thing eventually. But baby steps. We can't have Ray Palmer shrinking himself down to microscopic size right off the bat. I think that they're going to slowly ease the craziness level of Arrow up so that some of the really off the wall stuff that they do on Flash will not seem so out there when they do sort of bring those elements in from time to time. They probably might have like maybe one or two superpowered bad guys a year, something like that is what I'm thinking. But in any case, I thought that whole situation was pretty well done. Now Roy had some nice stuff, and I'm really glad that they aren't just letting this whole Roy killed that cop thing. And it's been acknowledged a few times since then. But going here and seeing that Roy quietly is helping out the widow and son of the man he killed, and that's his way of dealing with the guilt of it all. Because Roy, sorry, Roy being arrested and all that, because he did stab that guy with the arrow while he was not wearing gloves, and we know because we've seen that Roy has been arrested before, so Roy's fingerprints would be in the system. One just kind of has to assume that somehow along the way the forensic guys messed up or something. Who knows? You can't think too hard about all of this stuff. So in any case, him showing that to Thea is like, look, you killed Sarah and you feel horrible about it, but you don't have to do something really stupid. Well, Roy probably wasn't thinking that, but basically Roy was telling her, was like, look, you have something that's going to hang on your soul for the rest of your life, and there's nothing you can do about it. But it is something that you can learn to live with, something you can cope with. He even makes it a point of telling her, it's like, I know it may not seem like it now, but it won't always feel this bad. Now that guilt, that pain is always going to be with Roy, but he's learned to live with it. And when you learn to live with something, it is true. As time goes by, the pain will fade. It'll probably never go away, but it will fade, just like all scars. Of course, Thea does not take Roy's advice, although she does acknowledge that she understands why he's trying to do this. And this whole thing with Thea. Now, I really did like that scene with her confessing what happened to Laurel. And I was really pleased for Laurel as a character that Laurel immediately rushes to show that she does not blame Thea at all. It would have been, I think, a real disservice to Laurel's character to her just flip the hell out and start screaming at Thea or do something really stupid like try and attack her. I know that Oliver maybe kind of thought that might happen because, well, let's face it, Laurel hasn't exactly been the most stable of people lately. But in any case, for whatever her flaws, it does show at least some degree of maturity on Laurel's part. And this kind of leads into one of the other big things in this episode, and another one of the things I saw people online complaining about is like Oliver is constantly sort of making decisions for other people, not telling them things that maybe they have a right to know. I even saw somebody like telling like Oliver's a misogynist. He's always making decisions for like Laurel and Thea. It's like, okay, first of all, Laurel made the decision. Yes, Oliver lied to Thea and Laurel about Sarah's death. Guess who also lied about Sarah's death? Laurel! To her dad! Repeatedly! So I guess if a guy lies to a woman to protect her, that's misogyny, and if a woman lies to a man to protect him, that's cool. Alright. That's... Okay, let's be fair. That's bullshit. Like, no, of course you shouldn't lie to people that you care about. But, one, Oliver is the leader. He's basically the leader of Team Arrow, and sometimes leaders have to make command decisions. They have to do things that the people that work with them and are not the leaders may not like. And, this is kind of... There is no real set boundary on this. I mean, it's a very difficult situation. But let's look at the let's look at this situation. Every time Oliver has said, recently Oliver said you shouldn't do this, or this is a bad idea, like, oh hey, telling Thea the truth. Well, that hasn't really helped Thea's mental state, now has it? And like this episode, Oliver's like, what the hell? Why did you go after Malcolm Merlyn? That was stupid. And lo and behold, that was a stupid move on Laurel's part. I mean, Malcolm basically laughed in her face. And then he said, like, okay, we have to go and try and save Malcolm because eventually it's going to hit Thea, what she did, and the guilt is going to eat her alive. And that's exactly what happens. Yeah, a lot of the people on team, like basically everybody around there is pissed off at Oliver because he's being kind of an asshole. But again, everything Oliver has said in those regards has turned out to be right. So what are you gonna do? I mean, Oliver is the person here who really understands the stakes more than anybody, except perhaps Malcolm Merlyn. And as much of an asshole as he is, Malcolm has repeatedly been proven right. In fact, the only thing that Oliver has really been wrong about lately is the idea that Malcolm would give Thea up to the League of Assassins. The League tortured the hell out of Malcolm, but from everything we've seen, he did not give Thea up. Although that, with all that said, it was pretty fun to once again watch Laurel lay into Oliver for lying to her. Now, I don't agree with her, but it certainly was fun. But anyway, continuing on with Laurel. Well, actually, let's wrap things up with Thea. So, once again, not listening to Oliver has resulted in Thea saying, you know what, I'm just going to let Nissa out of her cage, give her a sword, and go like, look, if you want to kill me, just do it. That's effing great. Again, if you just listen to freaking Oliver, this. But anyway, so looking at Laurel this episode. Oh yeah. Um, Again, we can see the results of Laurel lying to her father. Oh yeah, yeah. It's bad when Oliver lies about my sister's death, but when I lie about my sister's death, it's fine. Okay, so yeah, Laurel's getting a little karmic justice on that front from her dad. And then, like I said, I absolutely thought it was hilarious when she goes off to try and fight Malcolm, and he just laughs in her face. What was cool is then she's like, "Yeah, I knew I never had a chance against you in a physical fight, but I brought a gun." That was cool. Laurel might have actually had a chance there because Malcolm definitely would have gone into that situation totally underestimating her. So points to Laurel for an admirable degree of ruthlessness. And then she's just like, "Oh, League of Assassins, you're going to take this guy off? Okay, cool." So apparently, in terms of due process or whatever, Laurel is cool with people taking a guy off to torture the hell out of him and then kill him, but is going to raise a stink at unlawful imprisonment. Never mind that Argus is actually a branch of the government, but Felicity didn't specify that it was actually an Argus prison, so I guess we have to let that one slide. Yeah, I think that kind of covers everything with Laurel and Thea. Nissa. Okay, let's talk about her briefly. I did like that sort of story that she tells Thea about how she fell in love with Sarah. And what I'm just wondering though is like, okay, she says, Ra's al Ghul gave a demonstration of his power that made many hardy people before him just basically crap themselves in terror or whatever. And Sarah laughed at this. What the hell did Ra's al Ghul actually do? You really do need to be more specific here. Because Ra's al Ghul was like, "I am the mighty and evil Ra's al Ghul. Watch as I shove a red-hot poker up this guy's ass." And then Sarah laughed at that. Like, WTF is wrong with Sarah? I mean, seriously, this really should have been elaborated on. It kind of feels like the writers are pulling some BS there. But anyway, this episode also sees us I can't talk. Lets us see for the second time Oliver defeat Nissa al Ghul in combat. Like the first time they kind of fought each other, it was basically a draw. Second time Oliver wins. This time Oliver wins again. So let's jump forward to what happens at the end with Ra's al Ghul offering Oliver his position. Okay, if Nissa has twice been defeated by this guy, and Oliver has done all this other crap, such as attack Nanda Parbat and possibly kill a whole bunch of League of Assassins members, despite having made that big vow not to kill thing. I mean, I'm just going to assume that Oliver was actually tranking those guys, and it was just Dig who was killing people. I guess Oliver was like, yeah, as long as I don't kill anybody, it's cool. Like, if the guy next to me kills some people, hey, that Dig didn't make a promise to Tommy. So yeah, I have a feeling that one, Nissa is not going to react well to Oliver being given this offer when she finds out. And two, Rachel, when she goes, "Hey Dad, what the hell?" Ra's al Ghul's gonna like, this guy's kicked your ass twice. Not to mention, he's broke in here, killed a whole bunch of my dudes. He's managed to, he even gave me a really good fight. Sorry, sweetie. This guy's actually way more qualified to lead the League of Assassins than you are. Oh god, this is absolutely gonna shit a brick. That's gonna be great. So anyway, let's kind of we'll come back to Oliver and that offer in a bit. I actually want to talk about Dig this time around. Uh, one, it was actually cool to see Lila again, see Dig spend some time with his daughter. I mean, that was sweet. And him asking Oliver, to be my best man, and just flat out saying, you're all to Oliver, you're my brother. I mean, that was pretty awesome. And just once again, we see Dig going out there dispensing that, older, more experienced, basically being the cool older brother to Oliver, and it's great stuff. And I absolutely love that scene with the Arrow Cave where he's just like, "You shouldn't even talk to me at all," to Malcolm Merlin. It's like, yeah, I don't care if you're League of Assassins. You don't you don't scare me, which is a little odd considering that it's made clear that if he wanted to, Malcolm probably could kill Dig without too much trouble. But John Diggle shows no fear to the likes of Malcolm Merlin. Uh-uh. And I kind of was a little questioning Lila's like, you should totally go with Oliver on this suicide mission thing, because that seems really not how she would react at all. But it led to some great scenes, so I'm willing to forgive that. And it is not totally unbelievable from what we know about Lila as a character. So yeah, I'll let that one slide as just sort of drama. And nope, nothing else to say about Dig this episode. And I am glad he is going to get an episode that's really going to focus him on him in the not too distant future, because Dig, he's had his great moments, but he's really been out of focus for quite a while, and I think we are definitely due for a Diggle story. Let's see. Actually, I'm trying to think of anything else I had to say about Oliver, and I'm kind of drawing a blank because I've already talked about everything that he said and done in relation to the other characters. So I guess that brings us to let's talk about Malcolm Merlin just briefly. Again, we have to give Malcolm credit for not having given Thea up. And as I said, it was hilarious watching him mock the living hell out of Laurel. And it was just sad watching him basically beg for his life. I mean, Malcolm, you can tell by the look on his face, he's like, he knows Raish is not going to go for this. But it's like, what the hell? What does he have to lose? And Raish quite accurately points out, it's like, Malcolm, you're going to die. At least die with some dignity, for God's sake. So yeah, like that was just fun watching John Barrowman look like he was about to crap himself and beg for his life. Never let it be said that John Barrowman does not have an absolutely amazing range as an actor. And yeah, that kind of covers that. And this all brings us to the whole situation with Ra's al Ghul offering Oliver leadership of the League of Assassins, or should I say, to become the new Ra's al Ghul. Now, Arrow has never been very shy about borrowing from Batman, and it's clear this is a bit of a riff on arguably the most famous Ra's al Ghul story, which is Daughter of the Demon, where Ra's al Ghul says, like, you know what, I'm thinking about retiring. I'm going to test you out, Batman, and if I find, and he just basically does that and says, you know what, I find you worthy. Say the word, and I'll make you the head of the League of Assassins. Think about what all you can do with the resources and power of the League of Assassins at your disposal. Like cleaning up Gotham, getting rid of bad guys all over the world. That'll be a snap for you. And I'll throw in my hot daughter to sweeten the pot. And unsurprisingly, Batman does not go for this. Although the hot daughter, yeah, he's a little tempted there. More than a little tempted, actually, if you're familiar with the Batman mythos. But well, that's not for here or now. But what he says is interesting. Where he says, "I want you to be the next Ra's al Ghul." Now, in the comics, Ra's al Ghul has always been the same dude. He's been like there since he's been alive since like the medieval days in the Middle East. And it's just through the Lazarus Pit, and it was actually confirmed by the writers that funky hot tub that Ra's was hanging out in was sort of their version of a Lazarus Pit. Now, it looks like maybe the Lazarus Pit is not as powerful as it is in the comics. In the comics, you basically throw a reasonably intact dead body in there, a live person will frickin' crawl out. That's how damn powerful a Lazarus Pit is. Here, it seems more like it's something that it can grant you probably decades of extra life, keep you young and strong, but it can't keep you going forever. So it sort of sounds like Raish may be nearing the end of the road, or within the foreseeable future, think that the juice from the Lazarus pit is going to run out, or I'm just freaking want to retire and I need to find someone else. So the idea of Ra's al Ghul, which remember is not really a proper name, it means the head of the demon. It's really in a lot of ways more a title, though it is of course Ra's al Ghul's real name in the comics as far as I know. But here, the idea of it as a title, as a mantle, as something that is passed on from person to person, that's cool. I never would have imagined that. So, a lot of points to the writers for going for taking a classic story, putting a new twist on it, and making it something that works for Oliver as a character, rather than just sort of doing copy and paste with an old Batman story. I mean that is some smart thinking there. I love that. And yeah, that's everything I got to say about this episode. So, guys, as always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.